Welcome, everybody. Hello. Today, I am talking to my friend Chelsey DeMatteis all about podcasting. If you've ever thought about starting a podcast, if you used to have a podcast, but you're thinking about maybe doing a podcast again, or if you already have a podcast going, but you want to figure out ways to grow, you are in for a treat with this conversation with Chelsey. Chelsey, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Absolutely. So I'm so excited that you are going to be leading one of our workshop sessions at the Christian Entrepreneur Conference. If y'all do not know, the Christian Entrepreneur Conference is a live event in Nashville, Tennessee. It's actually technically in Franklin, Tennessee, which is near Nashville. I think it's like the best part of Nashville. Yeah. And it is April 27th, 28th, and 29th. And we have some incredible workshop leaders that will give you hands-on practical training to help you move forward in your business. And one of the best things that you can do in your business is to start some sort of a content stream, some sort of a show, some sort of way to get your content out. Podcasting is probably one of my favorite. Chelsey, for those that don't have a podcast, what would be a few reasons to start a podcast as an entrepreneur?
So one of the biggest things is it gives you the ability to truly speak to your audience. Who is it that you're trying to talk to? And the gift in it for me is somebody's giving you part of their time. Like they like you enough. They like what you're offering them. And so they're showing up for mine. My show is a weekly podcast. And so they show up week after week to listen to what I'm sharing. And it's just a really great thing and a way to engage them. And you then learn who your audience is. I think that's a really hard thing to do in the social media world. And when you have podcasts, you get numbers and all of those things to see your demographic and where people are. That's so helpful.
That's right. Oh, I love that. I've never really thought about that. The podcast actually lets you differentiate the difference between maybe your friends and even some of your followers online and your true core audience, the people that are going to want to do business with you, buy your course, buy your book, come to your conference, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. And that's one thing too, because you can break down analytics. And it's funny, we were kind of joking. I'm not a techie person. I'm not a numbers person, but when you start to see a number as a person, it is really motivating and exciting too, to see these people coming back week after week. And you see as it grows, people are sharing what people are doing. And it's just, I think it's been such a cool tool because that turned into me then having a book come out, which I'll share more about in my session. But it's just been really cool to see how God used the podcast to then grow a whole other audience.
That's right. That's amazing. You know, in our membership community, Hope Writers, we talk to editors and agents all the time. And one thing that I've heard them say for years now is when they're looking at a proposal for a book and one person has a podcast and another person doesn't, like, which one are they going to be more interested in, right? They're going to be interested in the person who already has some sort of a show or some sort of way to get content out there. Is that your experience as well?
That is. And I think something that's really important, especially if you are somebody that wants to sell a product or a book or something like that, if you can get your voice, your literal voice, I'm not just talking about what you have to say, but when people can hear what your voice sounds like, then when they read your words, they read your posts, they see your thing, they truly know what you sound like. And it's like you're talking with them.
Yes. That's so good. Okay, Chelsey, what would you say are some of the barriers to getting started as a podcaster? I know that podcasting can feel maybe a little overwhelming, or people have heard about podcasting for a while. Maybe they even listen to podcasts. But in terms of actually starting your own podcast, what are some of the areas that you see that you've seen people kind of get tripped up in getting their own show off the ground?
I think the first thing is people just don't believe in the ideas that they have. And if you feel something that you're really passionate about, for me, this is my ministry. Like, this is ministry. God knit this in my heart and I'm going to be passionate about it. But I realized being excited and being passionate doesn't make something happen. I now have to be obedient with that thing. And so I had to start. And so the first thing is people go, well, how do you start? What do you do? You have to find a hosting site. I know that sounds so lame, but it's true. Find a place that will host it. And there's all kinds of places. And then just start. Find a room that's quiet, that sounds nice. I think people think you have to have a studio, you have to have a microphone, you have to have all the things. You don't need all the things. You need to just show up with the best of what you have to offer and hit record and see what God does with that. You have to be obedient. You have to do the work. But you also, the main thing is just showing up and being consistent with that. And now that kind of goes into the next part is consistency. Mm-hmm. It's really important. I am very much an all or nothing kind of person. So if you say, I'm going to do this thing once a month. Then show up once a month for it. If you're going to do it every week, show up every week, because your people that come and listen to your show, that are going to come to whatever platform you do it on, they're expecting that. Don't think that everyone's just going to line you up in the queue. You have to do that. You're serving them. You have to look at it as a service. It is a business, right? You're not going to go get your hair done and have your hairdresser not be there. It's the same thing for your podcast. You have to show up for your people. And so I think those are the two main things, is just starting, doing it, but then being consistent and continuing to show up. You don't just quit after 2 weeks and only 5 people listen. Keep showing up and keep being there for your people.
That's right. I love that. One of my favorite verses, Zechariah 4:10, do not despise the small beginnings, for the Lord rejoices to see the work begin. And I think too many people, when they start anything, but specifically a podcast, but this is true of other social media or even an email list, blog, whatever, is that like immediately we want to put the pressure of numbers, the pressure of metrics, the pressure of growth on this little baby bird thing that we started, this little sapling, and we want to start hanging ornaments on it, but it just got started. So what advice would you have to somebody who's thinking of quitting their podcast or has really struggled to run the race of consistently posting their podcast?
Well, I would first say, what's your motive? What's the heart motive behind it? Is it a number? Do you want a number? Because if you want a number, you're always going to feel that. Doesn't matter how big your platform gets. However, if it's something where you are wanting to quit, you feel like maybe you don't have the time, you can't be consistent, I would say take a sabbatical. That's something that I did. It's okay to pause. Brian, you saw my post about this. It's okay to press pause. You can do that. But I would say don't quit. Pause it. Ask people to come alongside you, pray about it, talk with people that have also been in this area and see what's worked for them. And then after your leave, after your time of absence, come back to it and say, okay, am I refreshed? Am I ready to do this? Or is this now segueing into something new? But I would say don't just quit. If you want to just quit and throw in the towel, pause. Don't just throw in the towel.
That's so good. Yeah, it's like the conflicting advice, right? Which I think that's really where wisdom is often in the middle, where this thing is true and this thing is true. Like, give yourself a pause, and there's a time and season for everything. Like, I 100% agree with that. And then also the principle, the law of sowing and reaping, which is if you consistently deliver, consistently show up for your audience, over time it's going to grow. And kind of like balancing the two of those based on your season of life. I know you're a busy mom. My kids are getting older now, but when they were really little, like, it wasn't necessarily the season for podcasting, right?
It can be a lot. However, I have found, and I know we'll talk about it a little bit at the end about my breakout session, but you just show up with what you have, and the Lord does make the margin. I don't want to sound like that silly person that says you'll find the time, but if it's something that God is calling you to do, you will find the time. He will create the margin in your day.
Yeah. That's so good. Well, good. Well, let's talk a little bit about your session. For those that are just tuning in, Chelsey is leading a session on getting started in podcasting at the Christian Entrepreneur Conference. And if you don't already have your ticket for the Christian Entrepreneur Conference, this is our inaugural event. This is our premier event that we're doing right outside of Nashville, Tennessee. It's called the Christian Entrepreneur Conference, and you can grab your early bird ticket at christianentrepreneurs.us/CEC. We have a link right there. Grab your ticket. You can get the early bird discount for a limited time. Chelsey, tell us a little bit about what we can expect from your workshop at the Christian Entrepreneur Conference.
So I know I've kind of teased it a little bit, but it's all about the beginning days of podcasting and showing up with your fish and your loaves. So think about the little boy showing up with his fish and loaves to Jesus to feed the 5,000. And what was that? When you think of that story, this little boy was showing up with the best that he had to offer. He didn't have all the shiny things. He didn't have the best food. He didn't have anything extravagant, but he had what he could bring to the Lord out of obedience and sacrifice. And then look at what God did with that. And so that's what I'm sharing about. Yes, the beginning days, but also to be encouraged to know that you don't need the shiny big things. You just truly need a heart that wants to be obedient and serve people well. Because that's also what that little boy did. He wanted to serve the people that were all hungry sitting there. And that's what I want to do. And I'm sure that's what you want to do, especially if you're coming there to be in the podcast world. You want to serve people. That is what it's all about, is serving them well and serving them with the best that you have to offer them.
That's right. I love that. Chelsey, I'm so encouraged by our conversation. It makes me want to restart a podcast. So,
Yeah. Hey,
you
there you
know,
go.
recording that show, getting that show going, and then over time it'll grow. And I think getting started. And so if you've thought about starting a podcast, Chelsey's going to be at the Christian Entrepreneur Conference. You can go to her workshop session, ask her a question. This is your opportunity to get that training, that support, and most importantly, that community. Chelsey, I'd like to ask you about community and how community has impacted you, because I know being an entrepreneur can be lonely. Starting a podcast, especially when you just have a few people listening, can be really lonely. How have you seen the power of community impact you in your life and your business?
So I will say that is why these type of conferences, this conference is so important to go to. I went to something similar back in 2019, and I had been doing the podcast for about 6 months, and I went there and I met all kinds of women that have been doing the very same thing that I was doing. We were all in different spheres, right? All different missions. However, I finally was connected with women that got me. They understood. And through that connection, this is why, again, it's really important to come to these things, is my one connection with, and she's now a friend of mine. We talk all the time. She connected me with another woman who was connected to my publisher. And then I reached out through all the other avenues and got a hold of my publisher. And that's how I met her, through one connection at a conference in 2019. God slowly unfolded that. And so being in community and finding people that have experienced what I've experienced was really nice to know that I do have people that I can call or Marco Polo or email with to say, hey, can you listen to this? I had several of my friends, they listened to episodes before they'd gone out to say, hey, can you listen to this? Like, do you hear my heart in this? Or when it came to the writing side, I was like, hey, can you read my query letter? Am I getting my point across? And so having a community, which obviously being part of Hope Writers and getting into these pockets of people where they get you and they understand your heart and your intention, but you can have another set of eyes or another set of ears on things, is really important. And for me, it has truly been a lifeline in this type of ministry, because I don't have people around me that do this, but I have people all over that I've been able to connect with and that I talk with on a weekly basis that do encourage me. And I do feel like they're alongside me in it.
Amazing. I love that. So if you don't have your people, I mean, let's face it, like your spouse, your best friend, people at your church, they probably think you're a little weird. Like, why don't you share your message on the internet and create a podcast, maybe write a book, create a business out of this whole thing? Like, it can be really lonely. Come to Nashville, come meet other Christian entrepreneurs that get it and that support you in your dreams. ChristianEntrepreneurs.us/CEC. Grab your early bird ticket today. Chelsey, any last words or encouragement for us, specifically about podcasting or about our business?
Okay, well, I will say for the conference, I wrote this down. I'm not normally a practical person. However, if you are coming to this and you do not have a business card, make a really nice looking business card. Brian, maybe you guys can like share this on the socials about this, but create a nice business card, because that's what you get to leave with people. That's also how really important connections happen. It shows your brand. It shows who you are. It gives them a face to remember. I think that was something practically that really helped me when I went to an event in 2019. But then just for encouragement to know that if you're showing up and you're going to be getting tools, you're going to have actual things to then leave with and go do when you get home. I think that it's priceless when you get to have tools to implement once you're back at home ready to start your thing.
That's right. That's awesome. You know, what I love about an event, and that was the heart behind starting the Christian Entrepreneur Conference, is this idea of gathering the scattered, that so many of us are on our own. Like I literally work from home, and besides hearing the barking dog outside or the guy running the leaf blower, like there's nobody around me, but connection happens in person. I love online. I think there's something so powerful about seeing people like our friend Kristen there in the chat. Like, it's really fun to see people online, but there's nothing that quite beats being together. Even the Bible instructs us to gather together, right? Do not forsake the gathering of believers. And I think there's something really powerful about coming together as Christian business owners and Christian entrepreneurs to support and encourage each other. And the fun thing is, like, as I looked at the whole kind of industry of like being a Christian entrepreneur, I didn't see an event that really fit this worldview of we believe the Bible and we want to grow our business, like doing those two things. I just didn't see anybody doing it. So I'm like, we've got to plant our flag. Like, we've got to stand up for what we believe in and have an event. And so we're really excited. It's just outside of Nashville in Franklin, Tennessee, April 27th, 20th, and 29th. And this is your chance to get your early bird ticket. Just go to christianentrepreneurs.us/CEC, stands for Christian Entrepreneur Conference. Come join us in Nashville. Chelsey, thank you so much for doing this today.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I can't wait to see everybody at the conference.
Awesome. Grab your ticket, y'all. Thanks so much.